see you, 1 2 step. Okay, so randomly, that song has been playing in my mind all morning. Just a side note, legal purposes, I do not own the rights to that song. It's called 1 2 Step by Sierra. If you know, you know. And I was just thinking to myself as I was preparing to record this podcast, I was like, if you don't know what to do today, just do a little 1 2 step. That could mean like just walking somewhere, or I don't know, doing a little jig, a little dance, a little something to move your body. And at least you've accomplished something for the day. Anyway, it was super random. I was like, let me just, share it, introduce it. I'm here by the mic. Might as well continue with this mental shenanigans. Anyway, so hello. Today's podcast is going to be a bit of a continuation of a topic I had touched on a bit in the podcast, I think 2 weeks ago. So the topic for today is about writing imperfection. And I started talking about it when I was trying to highlight that as writers and creatives, you shouldn't strive to write in perfection because that can hinder the flow. And it's interesting because writing in perfection is very not touchy. It can be a bit tricky. There we go. Because it shows up in the most interesting ways. And I remember I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and she's a writer as well. And she was just and we were talking, and she said, she learned something from her professor, and they said, you cannot write and edit at the same time. And when she said that, I was like, oh girl, facts. That's exactly what it is. And if you're wondering, well, I don't know how to tell if I'm writing in perfection. If you're writing something and trying to edit it at the same time, it might be a little hint that you're doing it, because you want to focus on one thing, right? You're either writing or you're editing. So if you're creating something, you find yourself editing it, my goodness, for grammar or, whatever it is you're editing it for as you're writing, take a moment to pause and almost make your mind focus only on the writing aspect, because you know what it's going to sound like anyway. You know what it's going to need when it starts time to edit. So focus on that, So writing imperfection, let's talk about it. The thing you fear is limiting your vision. And I was like, okay, what does perfectionism have to do with fear? Well, I feel like fear tends to be the underlying thing around perfectionism. And I'm going to speak for myself, okay? I don't know about you guys. If you have something different, feel free to let me know. But for me, I've found that when I'm operating in perfectionism, there's a level of fear underneath, whether it's a fear of failure, fear of success. Did not know that was a real thing until a few years ago. I was like, wait, you can fear success? Yes, you can. And that fear of success can lead to self-sabotage. Fun fact. So, and the thing is, if fear is underneath the habit or mindset of perfectionism in your writing, especially, or in your creations as a creative, that is not good, because the creator said he did not give you a spirit of fear. And I know, and this is found in I think a chapter in the Bible in 2 Timothy. I will put the link in the show notes. And when people hear that, we hear that often. If you grew up around, the church, you hear that a lot. God has not given you a spirit of fear. He's given you the spirit, one of power, love, and a sound mind. But let's talk about this. Because fear, when that passage is talking about God not giving you a spirit of fear, I feel like the creator is saying, I did not give you an attitude or a mindset of fear. Because when you have an attitude and a mindset of fear, that now starts shaping and influencing your behavior and your approach to certain things, including the things you're creating. Because when you have a mindset of something, that mindset literally translates in everything you do. So imagine the creator literally saying, I did not give you a mindset of fear, nor an attitude of fear. I gave you an attitude that walks in power, meaning you have authority over the decisions you make and the things you choose, of love, a mindset and attitude of being able to love through the relationship with your creator, with yourself, and with others, and of a sound mind. Now, years ago, I actually was curious. I was, I like researching stuff. So I was like, what does sound mind mean? And I found some interesting definitions, but I was really, for some reason, like driven to find the legal definition of sound mind. Because in courts you hear, did they have a sound mind when they're committing this crime? So the definition of sound mind that I found to be so interesting is the ability to think and reason for yourself. Let me just say this. When the creator is talking about giving you a sound mind, it's not some kind of religious definition. It's literally the creator made you with the ability to think and reason for yourself. Think and reason for yourself. That's what you're created with. So I'm just going to pause here because I feel like I need to pause a little bit for effect. But you can think and reason for yourself. You don't always have to feel like if I'm not doing things a particular way, then I'm failing. No. Think and reason for yourself. Right now, in this moment, what are you able to do that can help you succeed in accomplishing the desired results for your project? Think and reason. What do you have right now? If you have a certain amount of time, how can you allocate and use that time to ensure that you're contributing to the success of your project, of your written work, whether you're writing for yourself, whether you're creating for yourself, or you're creating for others? How can you use it? Think and reason for yourself. So when you look at it from this perspective, you have a spirit that has given you the ability to have a mindset and attitude of power, love, and sound mind to be able to think and reason for yourself. And sometimes I feel like we miss this, especially if you grew up in a religious environment. Man, I had a hard time because I felt like I couldn't make certain decisions and I had to do certain things a particular way. And I did not realize in doing that was creating perfectionistic mindset in me. And let's talk about perfectionism for a moment. Let's talk about it. Okay. So I Googled what perfectionism meant. And according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, perfectionism is a disposition to regard anything short of perfection as unacceptable. So in saying anything short of perfection, meaning anything, this is just me interpreting this definition. It just means anything short of being flawless, lacking a blemish, lacking error, etc. Right? And I was like, okay, cool definition. Now let me tell you the definition that caught my attention. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. Let's talk about it. So the definition that caught my attention, also from Merriam-Webster's dictionary, says this: perfectionism is the doctrine that the perfection of moral character constitutes a person's highest good. I need to read that again. The doctrine that the perfection of moral character constitutes a highest good. Let me break it down, because when I read it, I was like, are you kidding me right now? Perfectionism can be a doctrine? What's a doctrine? I'm glad you asked. Okay, a doctrine is kind of like a belief or set of beliefs that are held or taught, almost like a policy. Yeah. Did you know if you're having a hard time with perfection, it could literally be because your mind has made it a policy, almost like a standard to how you operate? That's dangerous. You don't want to do that. It's very dangerous. So this is why I wanted to talk. I'm like, perfectionism has many negative effects. Okay, it's one thing to want to ensure that you're creating the highest quality work, but you have to make sure that you're not doing it from a perfectionistic mindset, because then the effects of perfectionism, they can be very sneaky. I'll just share some of the effects I have experienced in dealing with this. Some of them have been low self-esteem, right? If you're always trying to make things perfect, you start to almost question the quality of your work, which is the second thing I was going to share. You're always questioning the quality of your work, which leads to low self-esteem because you're like, man, I don't think this is good enough. Listen, if people are coming to you for help, if you are providing a service and you're serving your gift to the world, understand that for the space and place that you're in, it is the highest quality and you will consistently and continue to evolve, right? So another effect of perfectionism as a writer and as a creative is delaying the process of your project. Let's talk about this. Okay. As a perfectionist, or if you're struggling with perfectionism, let's correct that, because we're not trying to add this to our identity, people. Okay. If you're struggling with perfectionism, and you find yourself delaying the release of a project, make sure that you're delaying it not because of perfectionism. And let me explain what that looks like. If you're delaying it because of, let's say, there's technical difficulties, some things that need to be adjusted practically, maybe there's a part of your process that is yet to be complete. So there's something that is holding it back. That's different. But let me show you what perfectionism looks like. Perfectionism looks like it's been edited, it's been complete, it's perfectly done. Like the process to which you use to ensure quality for your product, service, of serving your gift is complete. But then you sit there and then you reread it and start finding other things wrong with it. Listen, that's a problem. Like if there's an error, it was fixed, that's different. But there's a level and a space where you almost on a subconscious level start finding things wrong with it. That's an effect of perfectionism and can hinder and delay the release of your project. It's almost like someone have asking you for something and you tell them a particular day and you're like, okay, and you've done all the work. You've said, I'm gonna, have it ready on this day. You've done all the work. It's ready. But then you're delaying, which now leads you to start questioning the quality of your work, which now leads to low self-esteem. And now you feel like you want to redo it all again and start from scratch. Don't do that. Don't do that. Trust that the quality of your work, especially with the space that you're in, is good. Because again, we're back to fear. The reason you're delaying your project is usually linked to fear, especially if it's being influenced by perfectionism. Okay, usually a fear of disappointing your readers. That's usually been what I had to deal with. If I was like, man, why am I feeling so much anxiety? What's up? What's going on? Because I was delaying some stuff like in the past with whether it was like, I talked about this in one of my podcasts, like the book and all that. I was scared. Yes, I'm not going to lie. I was feeling scared. And the fear when I looked deeper was a fear of disappointing my readers. But the thing is, I produced the best quality work that I could produce in that season. And now in this new season where I'm at, the quality I produce is going to be the best I can produce in this season. And as I continue to evolve and grow and master my skill, it'll change and it'll grow, So, and then another effect of perfectionism that I would touch on super quick is self-condemnation. It all ties in. You see how they're all connected. Self-condemnation, I would describe it as like inner critic on steroids. No, correction. Inner critic drill sergeant gone wild. That's how I can describe self-condemnation. And then if you already have experience in the effects of low self-esteem, question the quality of your work, and then self-condemnation kicks in, you are literally beating yourself up for producing work that you haven't even received feedback on. Why are you doing that? As a creative, as a writer, why are you doing that? Don't do that to yourself. Man, don't do that to yourself. Like, there's a level of patience and grace I feel like we have to have with ourselves. And I'm telling you these things because I did this. I used to do this to myself, and every now and then I'm not going to pretend. I find myself doing it and I have to check myself like, okay, you know what? This is the best work you have produced, and you have even yet to receive any feedback. Not that the feedback is there to validate your gift or what you produce, it's to help you grow. And you know what? What evidence have you gotten so far that has led you to believe that this is not good, aside from your own fear of disappointing the reader? These are questions I've had to ask myself, So I just wanted to come and talk here because I think we need to learn to trust ourselves as creatives, as writers, and trust the creator in us. If you know, you know. But like, trust the creator in you. I have a relationship with the creator, I feel. So when I say trust the creator in you, I mean you are a creator. Like, don't think for once that just because, man, I don't write very well. Well, I bet you there's something you do very well that adds to the creation process. Do you know how to do hair very well? Well, guess what? You're a creator because you're innovative with the hairstyles you do. Like, there is so much potential in each and every one of us that sometimes we discount and take for granted because, well, it's just something I do. Okay, but I can guarantee you there's someone in this world who wishes they could do what you do. Okay? So I think we need to learn how to trust ourselves and trust the creator in us. Because I heard this definition of trust and it blew my mind. And they said, trust is believing that the creator has your best interest at heart. Guys, ladies, people. What? So let me turn this. Do you believe that you have the best interest at heart for yourself? And if not, why don't you believe that? What led you to believe that? What is the source? Let's go back to last week's episode, right? If you didn't listen to last week's episode, please go have a listen. I was talking about the power of words and the source and roots of them. So if you don't believe that you have your best interest at heart when it comes to your own personal growth and yourself, why is that? Where is that coming from? Is that the voice of someone else? Is it something that's just based on how you're feeling in the moment? Like, where is that coming from, right? And then, do you believe that the creator has your best interest at heart? And I touched on that a bit in last week's episode too. So if you haven't, please go back and listen and then come back, But so that is one of the things that I wanted to highlight with perfection. When you're writing in perfection, there's so much that goes into play. Okay, fear is usually at the root of it. And then, and this is the thing. If we don't deal with it, the one definition I read, it becomes almost like a policy to how we operate, and you don't want that. It's not good, and it almost puts stress on your creative process. Because again, when you're creating and writing in perfection, the stress of trying to ensure that everything is flawless, lacking blemish, error, almost creates an internal dissonance that leads you to try and edit and write at the same time. And I'm sure your mind has the ability to multitask, but you don't want to do that when you're creating. You want your creative system, your creative mind to create 100% fully on one side of the spectrum, right? Flow, let it come out. And then when you're done, go ahead, do the edits, fix the grammar, tweak the sentences, fix the word structures, do all of that. But don't try and do it all at the same time. So now you might be wondering, like, okay, I recognize that I have habits of writing perfectionism. Okay. I recognize I have habits of creating imperfectionism. How do I tweak that? How do I grow from that? Well, I would tell you I am still growing, so I'll share what I've learned so far in this area. One of the ways you can strengthen and try to shift from operating in a policy of perfectionism is by sharpening your skills as much as you can. And you might be like, well, what do you mean sharpen my skills? Like, I feel like that would just tie into feeling like I'm not good enough. No. If you're good at something, you always want to make sure you're strengthening it and growing that skill to make sure that you're always at your best. So don't look at it from the perspective of, well, I'm not good enough. That's an insecure perspective. That's rooted in fear. Don't do that. Let's flip it and say, I want to be my best for myself and for those I am called to impact. So I'm going to sharpen my skills. That might mean getting a mentor. That might mean maybe getting a course. And keep in mind, as you're thinking of doing these things, whether it's getting a mentor, getting a course, don't just subscribe to any mentor or any course. Make sure there are people, there are courses and spaces that align with who you are and where you're going. That's one thing I am grateful to have learned, because I've always been a particular person when it comes to certain things. So even with the communities and spaces I'm a part of, they align a lot with who I am now and who I've always felt like I am. So I'm grateful that I haven't had to be going through things where it's like, man, it just didn't align. And man, I felt like it was a waste. Like, no, understand that everything you experience is there to teach you something. So I would suggest, sharpening your skills. And another thing I would suggest is practice your skill. You want to be a master, not because you're trying to get a goal of, I want to be known as the master writer or master musician in this industry. No. Again, your intention is to make sure that you are always at your best at what you do. and trust that you'll be able to deliver at your best. That's the focus. It's not about being the greatest of all time. I mean, like, if it ends up being that way, then that's great. Excuse me, burped. But I think it's just about focusing about showing up as your best self so that you can impact others from your best self. Like the definition that says perfectionism is a doctrine that the perfection of moral character constitutes a person's highest good. I feel like when it says highest good, it's just about showing up as your best self. But when you hold yourself to a particular standard and feel like your policy has to be flawlessness, that right there contradicts you being able to be at your best self, because part of being at your best self is allowing yourself the space to understand that you're always growing. So there's a level of patience and grace there. So that's why perfectionism is dangerous. You don't want to have that as a mental policy because, like I said, it's dissonance. It's like opposite ends trying to come together, but it can't. So it's literally you fighting your own process. That's not fun. That's not fun. Anyway, and the last thing I'll suggest if you're trying to grow as a writer, as a creative in whatever space you're in, is just practice and get support. I think I already said practice, but join a community. And joining a community is just about getting support. You might be like, okay, well, community of writers. I'm like, it depends. Like, I am a writer, and the community I have found has nothing to do with writing, but it's meeting me in the space and mindset where I'm at right now. So I'm like, well, you're a writer, you don't have community right now. How does that work? Well, I'm in a community of like-minded women that are helping me grow in this space. And as I'm there, my mind is somehow able to translate the information I'm getting from that community to being a writer. It's interesting. It really is, but it's true, So, and sometimes you have to do what works best for you. You really do. Now, does that mean I'm never going to enter a writer community? Of course not. Of course not. But one thing I'm realizing that is that as you reach certain spaces and places in your journey, you have to be open to expanding the kinds of support you can get, because in certain seasons, the people who have been there to support you may not be able to support you in the way that you need. Granted, they will support you, they will be your cheerleader, they will cheer you on, but in the specific way you may need in that season, they may not be able to. Why? Because they haven't been in the space that you're at. So they can only meet you at the level to which they've been. So you might need deeper support, and that is where community comes in, So I hope all of these things help, because I was like, I really feel like I need to talk about writing and perfectionism a bit deeper, because it's deeper than just, it's blocking the flow. It's really just, are you operating in a policy of strict flawlessness, lacking error, of just making sure everything is on boom, boom, boom point? Because if that is a policy, you're hindering your creative flow automatically, because your mind is fighting against allowing yourself the space to make mistakes sometimes and learn from these mistakes, and then trying to operate in the policy of perfection, flawlessness, lacking error, blemish. And that policy does not allow the freedom for error and mistakes, does not allow the grace for growth and constant evolution in yourself, So I hope that made sense. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Follow me on Instagram at Nyasha Marian if you like to join my little space on IG. And I'll talk to you guys soon. I really just felt like I needed to talk about this because we hear about perfection all the time, but just from a different lens. I wanted to offer a different perspective. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day, night, evening. Goodbye. Okay, bye.